Hello, this is Wojciech Pietrzak again. This time something different. Upon several requests from comments on Facebook under my movies, I would like to present what the game is about, and to achieve this I will play a game against computer. In this game I will focus on the rules and rules only. I will not go strong, I will not describe strategy or tactics, I will only say what's going on the map. So, Twilight Struggle is a card-driven game which is played on the board representing the world from the Cold War. And it basically starts about 1945 and ends about 1989. The goal of the game is to gain 20 victory points, and whoever reaches this goal first wins the game, but this is not the only way you can win the game. By the way, victory points in this game work in an hourglass manner. It is a victory point earned by USSR is a victory point lost by USA and vice versa. Oh, I didn't mention it. The players represent USSR and USA and are fighting to dominate the world after the Second World War. Things are rather different than on the real paper board, but let's focus now on what's going on here. So this is 0-0 even. This is where you have victory points. If USSR is ahead, then there is a red background. If USA is ahead, there's a blue background. I clicked it, so the game is divided to three phases. It's early war, mid-war and late war. Each phase has its own dedicated deck of cards representing Cold War events, and the cards are added at the beginning of each phase to the cards from the previous phases which haven't been removed and are still in play. The game is divided into 10 turns. Early war has 3 turns, then turns 4, 5, 6 and 7 in mid-war, and 8 and 9 and 10 in late war. And as you see, there are 6 action rounds and 7 action rounds. This will be explained later. I drew 8 cards and I have the China card. I choose to have USSR because USSR starts the game, so it's easier for me to explain things when I have unlimited time to tell things before I start. Each turn, the China card is a special card, but I will tell about it a little later. For now, let's say that USSR starts with this card in hand. And I have 8 cards, my opponent also has 8 cards, I don't know which he drew, I have mine. Each turn has a headline and action rounds. A headline begins the turn, then action rounds are played round by round. There are 6 action rounds in turns 1, 2 and 3, and 7 action rounds in every other turn. And I have 8 cards because one is for headline, one is for every action round, and one is supposed to be hold card from turn to turn. It is possible to get rid of all cards. It is even possible to get rid of all cards so early that you can't play action round. In this case you have to pass, but you are not allowed to pass move if you have any cards to play. And it is possible that some events will cause you having more cards. Whatever the number of cards, the next turn cards are drawn so that you always start turn 1, 2 and 3 with 8 cards, and turns from 4 to 10 with 9 cards. The China card doesn't count to this limit. We have setup. Setup here is the VP and turn count. This is turn count. 0, 0 means this is the setup phase. This is the special phase before the first turn. Before I started, two things. This is space race. I will tell about it later. Now the first we see is that 2 ops roll 1 3 is the next project, so it means that if I want to send the next card to space race, it must be worth at least 2 operation points, and I succeed when I roll 1, 2 or 3. Oh, maybe I'll tell now what's about it. Every turn you can send 1 card to the space race. It's not obligatory. Player may do it, player doesn't have to do it. The card must fulfill these requirements for ops, and then when you send the card to space, you don't use the operation points, the event on the card doesn't trigger, and you roll die. If the roll is as described here, you advance in space. If the roll is not, you don't advance, but the card is sent to space already and the event isn't triggered. If you go to the step which has 2 numbers, this is victory points, reward for being on this step. When you are the first to be on this step, you gain the first number of victory points. When you are the second, you gain the second number. So the first player who gets here gets 2 victory points. The other who gets here gets the victory point back. When you reach the square with some superpower here mentioned, so may space 2 race space race card per turn, and so on and so on and so on, and you are the first to go here, you get this superpower. When you are the second to get here, you deny this superpower to your opponent. So if I am here, I can space 2 space race cards per turn. But if my opponent gets here as well, neither of us may space 2 space race cards per turn. We are limited to 1 as from the beginning of the game. And this is DEFCON. DEFCON starts at 5. The minimum level is 1, but if DEFCON drops to 1, the game immediately ends, and the player who was the active player loses the game. This is the most important and the most often misunderstood rule, and I will repeat it when it occurs. But for now, just know that if USSR is an active player and DEFCON drops to 1, USSR loses even if it was USA's player decision to drop the DEFCON. It doesn't matter which player decided to drop DEFCON, it matters only which player is an active one. The DEFCON is adjusted so that it gets 1 point higher, but no more than 5 at the beginning of each turn, and it gets 1 point lower every time a player performs a coup in a battleground country. So let's go to the countries and regions. The map is divided into 6 regions. There's Europe with purple background, there's Asia with orange one, there's Middle East with blue, there's Africa with 10, Central America with light green, and South America with dark green. There is a sub-region of Asia, Southeast Asia. There are 7 countries with yellow triangles here. It's Burma, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines. Europe is divided into Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Western has darker background than Eastern. Austria and Finland have triangles. They both belong to both Eastern and Western Europe. Let's focus here closer. Oh, not here. I meant Europe, and I wanted it to be Eastern Europe. Oh, okay, now. As we can see, there are countries with names on different backgrounds, and there are some digits here. The digit represents the stability of the country. The higher the digit, the harder it is to flip controlling the country. The red background indicates the battleground. All other countries are non-battleground. Those lines represent adjacencies between countries. They are important for game's sake, and they do not certainly match the geographical adjacencies because it was for playability. Black lines represent adjacencies between a country and a superpower, and red dotted line represent adjacency between two countries in two different regions, like France, Algeria, or Spain, Portugal, Morocco. Note that Spain, Portugal is one country here, or Turkey, Syria. Okay. And these digits here, these are influence points. At the beginning of the game, both superpowers have fixed influence points. USSR have 3 in East Germany, 3 in South Korea, 1 in Finland, 1 in Syria, 1 in Iraq. And why is it a yellow digit on a red background, and this is a red digit on a white background? Because now USSR has 1 influence in Finland but doesn't control Finland. He has 3 influence in East Germany and he does control East Germany. Why is it? Finland has stability of 4 and USSR has only 1 there, so he doesn't control it. East Germany has a stability of 3 and USSR controls it because he has at least 3 more influence than the opponent here. If there were 1 influence point for USA, they'll be both turned to the white backgrounded side because nobody would control West Germany. But if there were 1 point of USA and 4 points of USSR, these 4 would be on the red background and this one would be on the white background because the country would be controlled by USSR. So the country is controlled when you have an advantage in influence points over your opponent, and the advantage is at least as big as the stability of the country. Now about controlling and dominating and generally scoring regions. You are present in the region if you control at least 1 country in this region. For example, now you are present, USSR is present in Europe and USA is also present in Europe. Please also note that Canada is in Europe and Turkey is in Europe, and they are both Western Europe. Both players are also present in Asia, since Australia belongs to Asia. And neither player is present in any other region, although USA have many places where he is present at the beginning. A player dominates a region when he controls more countries than his opponent, more battleground countries than his opponent, and at least 1 non-battleground country. And the player controls the region if he controls more countries than his opponent in this region and he controls all the battlegrounds. There is no need to control a non-battleground to control a region, and if you control the region, it's more important than if you dominate the region. What else did I want to say? The game is card-driven, and the cards are generally of 5 types. The China card is a special card, and I call it one type. The other cards are neutral events, USSR events, USA events, and scoring cards. Let's start from scoring cards. These are named by region and scoring. There are scoring cards for Europe, Middle East, and Asia in the early war deck, and for all other regions in the mid-war deck, including Southeast Asia. And if a player plays a scoring card, then a region is scored and VPs are gained, victory points. Victory points depend on the region. Let's say Asia, for example. Asia scoring gives 3 for presence, 1 for domination, 7 for domination, 9 for control. So if one side is present and the other controls, it's 6 points, plus 1 per controlled battleground country in region and 1 per country controlled that is adjacent to enemy superpower. The two latter are common for all regions except Southeast Asia. What does it mean for Asia? If it was scored now, it's 3 for presence for both players, and these 3 nullify each other. 1 for USSR for battleground country, it's North Korea. Nobody dominates, because nobody has more countries. And nobody has countries adjacent to the hostile superpower. If there were 3 points of USA and 0 points of USSR in North Korea, it would be no presence for USSR. USA would have 1 battleground, 1 non-battleground, so it would be a domination for 7 points. 8th point for the battleground, which is North Korea, and 9th point for also North Korea for the fact that it's adjacent to USSR, to a total of 9 points versus 0 for Asia. The special thing about scoring cards is that they may not be held. If a player holds scoring card after playing all the action rounds, he loses the game. If both players keep scoring cards after the action rounds of the turn, the USA player wins. The events may be neutral, Soviet, or American, but as you see, you can draw all of them. I am Soviet player and I have American events. What this is all about. And these cards also have some numbers. Each card has an event. An event is connected. This event is American, which is recognized by the color of the star. White star is American, red star is Soviet, mixed star is neutral. If a player plays a neutral or his own card, he chooses to either use the event or use the operation value of this card. These digits are operation values: 4, 2, 1, 3, 3, 0, 0, 3, 3. Scoring cards are null for null points always and are considered 0 points when played in headline phase. The usage of operation points will be explained later. However, if you play a hostile card, so for example if USSR player plays American card, then he must take operation points and the event is triggered anyway, and if this event has any decision to make, the USA player makes the decision as if he had played this card himself. So the rest will probably show up when we start playing. Now the starting setup. USSR starts by placing 6 influence anywhere he wishes in Eastern Europe. The USA responds by placing 7 influence points anywhere he wishes in Western Europe. This is considered imbalanced and giving big handicap to USSR. So in tournament games it's most common that US player may also play some handicap. After putting 7 points in Western Europe, he is entitled to put some extra influence points anywhere in the world where he already has influence. The tournament consensus is that 2 or 3 influence points gave equalization. In this game I allowed my AI opponent to have 4. So let's start. I will start by playing 3 into Poland and 3 to Yugoslavia, and it gains me immediate domination in Europe, which you can see here, because I have 3 countries contra 1, I have 2 battlegrounds versus 0, and I have 1 non-battleground. It is, however, gonna change now, I guess. This is 7 from him, and 4 more to be decided. Two to South Korea. Excuse me for this sound. One to Iran. And another one to Panama. Please don't follow the moves in strategic sense, because AI player isn't strong and I am not going to play very strongly. Now there's the headline phase. Excuse me. The headline phase is about choosing a headline. You know, he chose headline. Now I can see it, I must choose my headline. The headline is always triggered as the event. I cannot take points from it unless, excuse me, the event allows me to do so. Even if I had headlined USA event, which I am allowed to, the event is gonna occur and I am not gonna get points. The headlines are triggered in order that the higher card, the one with more points, is triggered first, no matter who played it. Scoring is counted as 0. If both players play cards of the same value, the card played by American player triggers first. I will headline socialist governments. This event is unplayable as an event if the Iron Lady is in effect. The Iron Lady is the late war event, and it allows me to remove 2 US influence in Western Europe by a total of 3 influence points, removing no more than 2 per country. And this is what I have to follow word by word when I trigger the event. Please also note that, for example, De Gaulle is a start event, and it says remove from play if used as an event. This means if I had headlined De Gaulle, it would trigger and go here. But socialist governments don't have this disclaimer, so they go to the discard because they are a recurring event and they may appear later. The card is removed if it triggers a one-time event. If it triggers a recurring event or doesn't trigger event at all, it is discarded, and when the cards end up, the discard pile is reshuffled again and may be drawn again. So let's start. Socialist governments, and he headlined CIA. CIA says USSR reveals hand this turn. The US may conduct operations as if they played a one-up card. So my card goes first because it's higher, but then he sees my whole hand. I must show it to him, and then he plays as if he played this card for operation point. But this card will be removed from play. Okay, I go first. I remove from Italy. I remove another one from Italy to deny him controlling this country, and I remove one from West Germany to deny him controlling West Germany. Now he has 3, West Germany has a stability 4, and he has 1, Italy has a stability 2, not enough to control. And I confirm, and he does his move. After he uses the operation point, I will say something about the usage of operation point of his choice. He used it to coup. He performed coup in Syria. So what happened? Military coup in Syria, and of the sudden he has 2 points here. When you coup a country, you get one military operation. He got one, excuse me. You get as many military operations as equivalent to the value of card used for a coup. You got one because he couped with a one-op card. But if I coup, for example, with East European and the rest, I get 3. So he couped Syria. He got 1 military operation points. At the end of the turn, you have to have the number of military points at least equivalent to the DEFCON level. If you don't, you lose victory point for every missing military operation. Then he rolled a die and added the result to the value of the card. He rolled 6, adding to 1. The result of the coup is 7. And what did it mean? Syria is a 2 stability country. So for coup, you double the stability of the country. The double stability of the country is 4, and you subtract it from the result of the coup. If the result is 0 or negative, the coup fails, but in this case it was positive, +3. So the result was +3. So he removes 3 of my influence, but there was not enough. I had only 1. So he removes 1, the 2 remaining he adds by himself. So 7. So once again, 1 for the card plus 6 for a roll is 7, minus 4 for double stability of Syria is 3, minus 1 I already had is 2, plus 2 he adds. Coupping is only allowed in countries where the opponent has any influence. So I could coup Panama now, or for example Iran, or even UK, but it's pointless because the double stability of UK is 10. It's the maximum the card plus die may give, so the coup always fails. But I couldn't coup, for example, North Korea, because USA has no influence points in North Korea. Coups are also DEFCON restricted. Now that the DEFCON is at 5, I may coup anywhere. If the DEFCON drops to 4, coupping in Europe is forbidden. If the DEFCON drops to 3, coupping in Europe and Asia is forbidden. If the DEFCON drops to 2, coupping in Europe, Asia and Middle East is forbidden. And my move is going to be duck and cover. Duck and cover, degrade DEFCON 1 level, then US player earns VP equal to 5 minus current DEFCON level. Resolving the event, DEFCON dropped to 4, then he gained 5 minus 4, it's 1 VP. You see, there's 1 VP. Then I use this card and I choose other way of spending operation points. It is placing influence. I place 3 influence in Italy. You place as many influence as the value of operation value of the card, with one exception. If you place influence in an opponent controlled country, you pay 2 operation points for 1 influence. So if I put into Iran, I could only put 2, because the first one costs me 2, because Iran is of stability 2. The first one would cost me 2. The first influence costs me 2 operation points. The second costs me 1, because after I put the first, my opponent no longer controls Iran. The other rule is that you are only allowed to place influence in a country where you already are, or in a country adjacent to such country. In this case, Italy is adjacent to Yugoslavia. This is why I could put influence here. And the adjacency must be true from the beginning of your action round, so I couldn't put one in Italy and then one in France, because the adjacency in Italy just appeared during my move and cannot be used as an adjacency. And what is more, this adjacency must be true for the moment I am putting the influence. So if I had played card which removes me from Israel, I couldn't play influence points to Egypt even if I were in Israel earlier, because the adjacency isn't true at the moment I am placing my influence. So I controlled Italy and I degraded DEFCON so that he is not allowed to coup Italy, because DEFCON at 4 is too low to coup Europe. Europe is only couable when DEFCON is at 5. He broke my control of Yugoslavia. This is what I told you. He played his own card. Unfortunately, I cannot see it now. I cannot show it to you. Oh, maybe I can here. That was his card, his event, but he decided to use operation points, so the event never occurred. He has had 2 operation points, but he could use only 1 influence point because he was breaking my control. This is why it ended now. I will now play De Gaulle leads France, and I will not play the event. I will place influence in France. I have Europe scoring, I have Asia scoring, I must play both. Europe is specific because normally you have victory points for battlegrounds and for presence, domination and control. But for Europe, control is auto victory. When you play Europe scoring and you control it at the moment the scoring is triggered, you win the game immediately. I could technically try to play China card in West Germany and then to play East European unrest in West Germany, making it 7-3 and controlling Europe. But the problem is East European unrest as an event removes my influence from Eastern Europe and will remove from either East Germany or Poland or both. This is why I am going to play something else. I am going to play influence in Yugoslavia and in Afghanistan. Why could I put influence in Afghanistan? Because this is adjacent to the superpower I control. This adjacency I always have, so I cannot be denied access to Afghanistan. Oh, and one more thing. I played my opponent event, so it triggered. This is a one-time event with lasting effect. Formosan Revolution. Taiwan shall be treated as battleground country for scoring purposes if US controls Taiwan when the Asia scoring card is played or during final scoring at the end of turn 10. Taiwan is not a battleground country for any other game purpose. This card is discarded after the US play of the China card. So before I confirm this move, this is Taiwan. As you can see, it's not a battleground. But if USA now puts 3 here, it starts being a battleground when Asia scoring is played, and as long as USA doesn't play the China card, it is going to be a battleground. And US cannot play the China card now because I have it. Oh, maybe one more thing about playing China card. The China card starts with USSR player. It has no event whatsoever. It is a funny card because it never counts towards the limit. If I had played it, I would have to give it to my US opponent, but he would have to put it face down and he could not use it at the same turn. It would be flipped face up in the next turn. A player may never be forced to play China card, even if no other cards are left, but may be forced to give it due to event. China card is worth 4 points and may be worth 5 points if spent entirely in Asia. Let's play it now. He played my event the Cambridge 5, but the event was empty. The US player exposes all scoring cards in their hand. The USSR player may then add one influence in any single region named on one of these scoring cards. Cannot be played as an event in Lake War. So, if he had any scoring cards left, he would have to show me them, and I would be able to put one influence point there. In this case, it would be anywhere, because when I trigger the event, I am doing what the event says, and no rules regarding adjacency or breaking control and so on apply. But he doesn't have scoring, and it's obvious, well, because there are 3 scorings in the early war deck, and he played one, it was Middle East, and I have the other 2. So, now this is action round 4 out of 6. I have 3 more cards to play, and I must play both scorings, so let's start playing scorings. Europe is for 8. Why is it for 8? Because I have 4 battlegrounds, he has none, so it's 4-0 to me, and I dominated, and he is only present here. Presence is worth 3, domination is worth 7, so it's 4 in my favor. In Asia, in turn, there is now 8 in his favor, because he has domination and he has 1 battleground, and I don't even have presence. He decided to coup. It was a strong and a wise coup, and I think I'll risk coupping with the China card. I will coup South Korea. I will gain 5 military operation points, because the China card is worth 5 points if played entirely in Asia, and this will lower DEFCON to 3, because this is a battleground country. South Korea is risky, because it has a stability 3, the double stability is 6, so 6 will be subtracted from the sum of die and the card. If I roll 1, the coup fails. If I roll 2, the coup results in lowering the influence of USA in South Korea to 2. This is risky move. I wouldn't play it in a tournament game that way. Well, now I will have to play Asia scoring with having no presence there, and it hurts. It's now worth 4 points for USA, and it may be worth more. What happened there? He triggered my one-time event, Romanian abdication. Remove all US influence in Romania. USSR gains sufficient influence in Romania for control. And I started controlling Romania. Then he placed 1 in Pakistan. Now I have to play Asia scoring, because if I hold it, I lose immediately. And Asia scores 4 points for USA. 3 for presence, which I have not, and 1 for Afghanistan, because it's a country adjacent to me. But he doesn't dominate Asia, because he controls no battlegrounds in Asia. So play. And he plays his last card. It's an event, Captured Nazi Scientist, which says advance 1 step in space. Yes. In this case, he didn't roll, because he wasn't playing card for space race attempt, he was just playing an event. And what happened now? We have new cards. I got so that I have 8, but without China. He has China, and he has it ready to play now, because there's new turn. DEFCON was put up to 4, because we ended at 3, so it added 1, and he also has 8 cards, and one of them must be the headline choice. I will choose Vietnam Revolts. It's a one-time event, and it says add 2 USSR influence in Vietnam. For the remainder of the turn, the Soviet player may add 1 operations point to any card that uses all points in Southeast Asia. So If I play, for example, Fidel and put it in Thailand and Laos, Cambodia, it's worth 3 points. Please note that I put 2 points here regardless of adjacency, because I'm just triggering whatever event says. And he headlined Marshall Plan, and he will just perform its effect, and Marshall Plan allows him to put 1 influence point in each of 7 Western European countries not controlled by me. He would probably like to pick either France or Italy, but regretfully for him, I control it, so the event disallows. Now, I will start with coupping somewhere, because it lowers DEFCON. And I want to lower DEFCON because DEFCON at 4 allows him to coup in Asia, and I don't want to be couped out of Vietnam. So let's say I will play UN intervention as an event, and event says play this card simultaneously with a card containing your opponent's associated event. The event is cancelled, but you may use its operations value to conduct operations. The cancelled card returns to the discard play, may not be played during headline phase. So I couldn't play it in the headline phase, but now I play it. I play 2 cards in 1 move, so I will end up having no cards whatsoever at the end of the turn. And this move is worth 4 points for me, because I use points from the card I play together with UN intervention, but this event won't be triggered, and this card returns to the discard pile instead of to the removed pile. The event would disallow me coupping and realigning European countries controlled by US. And that was a very bad roll. I only rolled 1, so I had 5. So subtracting the doubled stability of Iran, I was left with only 1 remaining, so I only subtracted his influence by 1. This coup succeeded because it technically couldn't fail, but it was not so big success. Okay, let's perform another coup, this time with oh, why not, Suez Crisis. This time for Panama. Panama is also stability 2, so I need at least 2 to remove his 1 influence. When I roll 3, I remove both of his influence. Whatever I roll more than 3 will become my influence in Panama. I rolled 2. Please note that now he cannot coup anywhere, because DEFCON is at 2, which allows coupping Africa and Americas, but I don't have any influence points there. If I play Fidel, I will have influence points in Cuba. Oh, let's play it, because why not? Because Fidel, as an event, says remove all US influence in Cuba. USSR gains sufficient influence in Cuba for control. The equivalent of Romanian abdication just for Cuba. But he can't coup Cuba anyway, because it's a battleground. Coupping battleground lowers DEFCON, and DEFCON is at 2. If he had decided to lower DEFCON, DEFCON would drop to 1, and he would lose the game. No, not if he decided, if he did it on his action. But now it's his action. The distinguish is important if I had played his event, which allows him to conduct operations, or his event which lowers DEFCON just because it does, no matter what he decides. Okay, now I'm going to start making use of my Vietnam revolts. So, nuclear test ban, is worth 5 points if used entirely in Southeast Asia. So I over-control Thailand and over-control, sorry, Laos, Cambodia. Over-controlling is putting more influence points than you need to control. Thailand needs only 2. Laos, Cambodia needs only 1, but I put 2 there and 3 here. This is fully allowed. You may over-control countries by whatever number of points you wish. He used 5 points from China card, putting 4 in North Korea and 1 in South Korea. Please note that now Asia, when scores for him, scores 2 extra victory points for 2 countries adjacent to USSR. East European unrest. I will attempt to space race it, so the event won't be triggered. I cannot use 3 ops of this card in this situation, but the effect of the event doesn't occur, and I will do it just to show how it works. I succeeded because I needed to roll 1, 2 or 3, and I rolled 3. I gained 1 victory point because I'm the second player, sorry, not this, because I'm the second player to get there, because he went there by the event, captured Nazi scientist earlier, but I got 1 victory point. He is allowed to space, which is shown here. I am not. And now I will play blockade for the event. Unless US player immediately discards a 3 or more value operations card, eliminate all US influence in West Germany. So he either chooses to discard a high card or loses all this influence. If he doesn't have such card, he must lose the influence. And I will play it, and he decides. He decided to discard Comecon, which is my event, and he spaces Arab-Israeli war. What happened here? I gained 2 points because he didn't gain military operations, because he didn't coup. It is common that US player doesn't gain military operations in turn 2 and turn 3. Defcon was at 2, his military operations were at 0. I had at least 2 military operations, so I lost non-VPs, and he lost 2 VPs for 2 lacking military operations. And here we have the third turn. And Defcon is again at 3, and some cards are coming back because we got rid of all the cards. Some of them were removed, some of them were discarded, but there were not enough cards left for us to have 8 cards each. So when the cards ended, the discard pile was reshuffled and the cards were given again. So in turn 1 I played duck and cover in my first action round after the headline phase, and now I have duck and cover again in my hand. He also may have any card which wasn't removed by now. He must have all the cards that I don't have and didn't appear, and it's a question of memorizing things, whether I know these cards or not. Actually, I know them, but I won't pick them now because it wouldn't be a rule-related thing. I think I'll hellline Nasser. Add 2 USSR influence in Egypt, remove half rounded up of the US influence in Egypt. He has no influence there, I have no access there. Nasser gives me influence, access and control of Egypt. And he played Truman Doctrine. His event goes first. Truman Doctrine is a one-time event, so it's also removed as well as Nasser. Remove all USSR influence markers in one uncontrolled country in Europe. The country must be uncontrolled by either superpower. So if he had had 4-3 in Italy, he could have wiped me out to 4-0, because 4-3 is not a control. Italy is a 2 stability and requires 2 influence of advantage. But with 5-3 it wouldn't work because Italy would be controlled and Truman wouldn't work for it. Okay, DEFCON at 3, so maybe let's coup something. I will use Olympic Games for a coup attempt, let's say in Angola. I rolled 1, so Angola is only a stability of 1, so doubled stability is 2, but the result of my coup was 3, so I only removed his 1 influence point from there. He placed 2 in India and 1 in East Germany. East Germany was breaking my control there, so he paid 2 operation points for this. I will play NORAD. NORAD is his event. If the US controls Canada, the US may add 1 influence to any country already containing US influence at the conclusion of any action round in which the DEFCON marker moves to the 2 box. Quite an complicated text, but well, you'll see in practice what it means. It means that now that he doesn't control Canada, it doesn't matter, but once he controls Canada, my starting battleground coup will cost me 1 influence point for him wherever he already is. And I am placing 1, 2, 1 in Libya because I have adjacency from Egypt, and 1 in Saudi Arabia. I have adjacency from Iraq. One thing I didn't tell, I guess, if you play card associated with the hostile superpower, you grab the operation points and the event occurs, but you choose in which order this happens, so you choose whether you take points before or after the event. However, in case of this event, it didn't really matter. It would matter if I had played an event like, do I know? If I had played the event like Marshall Plan, for example, then before the event I could play 2 in Turkey and 2 in Greece, and then when the event is triggered, these 2 would be unable to be affected by Marshall, because Marshall only allows placing influence in countries not controlled by USSR. I must be careful because Duck and Cover is a DEFCON suicide card now. He placed 1 in Egypt. Duck and Cover is an event which degrades DEFCON, which means if I play it, it will drop DEFCON to 1 and I will lose the game. The event will always occur because it's associated with my opponent. What is more, I cannot simply hold this card because I have 5-year plan, and 5-year plan causes me randomly discard 1 card. If it's USA card, it's triggered. If it's neutral or my card, it's discarded without triggering. So if I had played it now and drew Duck and Cover, I'm losing immediately because Duck and Cover triggers and it's my turn when DEFCON drops to 1. If any other card is drawn, I must play all the cards or play the China card to be able to hold 1, because 5-year plan causes me playing 2 cards in a single move. So Duck and Cover is an obvious candidate to Space Race, but before I do it, I am going to secure my presence in Middle East. I played my own card, it was worth 3, so I put 3 influence, and the event didn't occur, so it didn't matter. But in case you were wondering, Comecon is a poor man's Marshall Plan. It allows me put 1 point in every of 4 East European countries not controlled by USA. Warsaw Pact formed. It in turn allows me to either place 5 US influence in Eastern Europe, but no more than 2 per country, or remove all US points from 4 countries in Eastern Europe. I choose to put my own because US countries in Eastern Europe which contain influence are East Germany, Yugoslavia and Austria, and I would just take 3 of his. I prefer get 6 of me, for me. 1, 2, I'm not allowed to put more, no more than 2 per country. So that's it, and then now he can use 3 ops. If this is boring you, you may stop at any time, because this will be repeatable. Just stay for a few minutes more. I will show you realignment roles. Realignment roles are DEFCON restricted the same way coups are. But so now when DEFCON is at 2, they are only allowed in Africa and Americas. But they work different way. They never lower DEFCON. They can also be conducted only against countries in which your opponent has influence. In this case, it's Colombia, Panama, Botswana, and South Africa. Realignment roll is about rolling dice by both players and adding modifiers. A player adds modifier if he has more influence in a target country than the opponent, and he adds 1, no matter how big the advantage is, and no matter whether he controls the target or not. And each player adds 1 to each country adjacent to the realigned country, including our own superpower. In this case, I could realign Botswana, South Africa, Colombia or Panama, and my modifier is -2 in each of them. It's -2 because my opponent has more points in every possible target. This is -1, and has 1 adjacent controlled country. This is -2, and it's normally a very bad move, but I will play it just to show how it works. The operation value of the card is the number of rolls which I may conduct, and I conduct roll by roll. After the effect of each roll, I decide about the target for next realignment, and I am allowed to not use all the rolls. For example, in case I was left only with bad targets, I mean targets in which we both have influence and I have negative modifiers, so I risk realigning myself out. Oh, what's the effect of realignments? The one who loses the modified roll loses as much influence as the difference shows, but influence may never be gained by realignment rolls. So if I, for example, roll 5 and USSR rolls 3, nothing changes because USA rolls 3, nothing changes because he has a +2 modifier, it's 5/5. But if I roll 6 and he rolls 3, he loses 1 influence from wherever I realigned. And I have 2 attempts when I play a 2 ops card, and let's try, okay, Panama. +2, roll modifiers +0. Oh, I rolled 6, he rolled 1, so he actually lost 3 influence points, but he only had 2, so he lost 2, he couldn't lose more. I couldn't gain anything because realignment rolls cannot gain me anything. And another more important rule which I forgot to mention. You may place influence by operation points, or you may space card, or you may coup with a card, or you may perform realignment rolls with a card, but you must use 1 card in 1 single action round only to 1 type of operations. So I only have the second realignment now, but I am not allowed to coup, I am not allowed to space this card, and I am not allowed to put influence directly. I will try to realign Colombia, because now its modifier only +1, because the adjacency disappeared. He no longer controls any adjacent country, so he only gets 1 for having more here. And he rolled 4, I rolled 1, no change. His modified is 5, my modified is 1, I lost 4, but I had nothing to lose. And my turn ended. Sorry, my action round ended. He is spacing the colonization, so the event doesn't occur. And he got to the third stage, so he gained 2 victory points. If I get there, I only get 0 points. Now, oh, there's turn 3. So some cards, like Duck and Cover, appeared for the second time. But hey, will we be drawing the same cards again and again when they end up? After all, some are removed, there are plenty removed cards, so the deck will end up earlier. No, we won't. We're reaching the end of the early war. At the beginning of mid-war, which is the very next turn, after 2 more of my action rounds and 2 more of his, the extra deck of mid-war is added, and mid-war events deck is very big. I will space Duck and Cover to avoid losing by DEFCON. It succeeded. I reached the second step and I denied him the second space. Look, he had some yellow indicator that he is allowed to space once more. Now he doesn't. He scored Asia. Asia scoring returned. He has 12 points now. If he reaches 8 more, he wins the game. And I will play Indo-Pakistani War. This is neutral cards, so I may use the event or the operation points, and I will actually use the event. India or Pakistan invades the other, player's choice, so I choose whether India invades Pakistan or Pakistan invades India. I am rolling a die and subtract 1 for every opponent controlled country adjacent to the target of the invasion. I will invade India. Adjacent country is Pakistan, and it's only 1, so I subtract 1 from what I roll. And I win if my modified roll is 4 to 6. So I have to roll 5 or 6, so that modified roll is 4 or 5, and I win the war. I gain 2 military operations, regardless of the result. But if I also win, I gain 2 victory points and replace all opponents' influence by mine. So I am now rolling, and 5 or 6 means that there are no US influence in India, and there are 2 my influence in India. All other results means that nothing changes. My military operations rise to 4. But with DEFCON at 2, it doesn't matter. It's improbable that he pushes DEFCON up to 4. Something buggy happened. Yes, play event. Maybe I didn't click it. And I succeeded. So I won 2 victory points. I won influence here. And I will probably won another 2 victory points for his lacking military operations. And I won another points for Europe. This time only 7, not 8, because comparing to the previous Europe scoring, he controls 1 battleground, which is West Germany. No, so, the next turn, the other set of cards, and we are playing. I will play Defectors. It is his event, and his event played in the headline phase cancels my event, and played any time later, it causes me to lose 1 victory point. If he had played this as an event in the middle of the turn, it would have no event. This will just cancel itself. He headlined ABM Treaty. This is one of the strongest cards. It increases DEFCON and then allows using the operation value of the cards. So he has DEFCON at 4, and he is able to use operations in the headline phase. But this is not because he just uses operation in headline phase. This is because the event allowed him. DEFCON dropped to 3. So I am going to play NATO and drop DEFCON to 2. And I am going to coup Iran. I rolled 1, so it's identical to my previous coup of Iran, but this time NATO was executed. These two, what you saw, Warsaw Pact and Marshall Plan, disappeared because their lasting effect was to allow NATO to be played. This lasting effect is no longer valid because NATO is in play and will be in play till the end of the game. Colonial Rearguards, and he played it for the event, so despite the card had only 2 operation value, he added 1 US influence in each of 4 different African and or Southeast Asian countries. He added 4 influence to 4 different countries. Please note that I have Africa scoring and I mustn't hold it, and my plan for it, due to losing Africa, is to use 5-year plan. I mean, if I play it as my last card and have only Africa scoring in hand, the Africa scoring will be discarded without triggering because it's a neutral event. And yes, it is a legal way of getting rid of the scoring card. The scoring card mustn't be held, but it doesn't mean that it must be played for scoring. If you can avoid playing scoring card for the event and holding it, you are fully allowed to do it. So now let's do something. Let's space something. Grain sales to Soviets must be spaced because it's a DEFCON suicide card. Randomly choose 1 card from USSR hand, play it or return it if Soviet player has no cards, or use this card to conduct operations normally. So this card allows US to conduct operations as if he had played it for operation points as minimal. So if I had played it, he could decide to return whatever he draws and then coup Cuba. Cuba is a battleground, so DEFCON drops immediately to 1, and it's his decision, but it's on my action round, so I would lose the game. On the other turn, I succeeded in spacing it. This gave me nothing because I gained 0 VPs for this stage, being the second one, but well. He's pushing Africa. I am unable to space any other cards, so I have to bite the pile and allow him the effects of Camp David Accords and Sadat expels Soviets. Camp David Accords has 3 effects. None of them is particularly harmful, but all 3 in one package are annoying. He gains 1 VP, he adds 1 influence in Egypt, Israel, in Jordan, and it makes Arab-Israeli war no longer playable. And I will play it, and I will attempt to coup Colombia. Colombia is easy couable now, because DEFCON is at 2, and Colombia is a non-battleground, so coupping there doesn't lower DEFCON. I rolled 4, so 2 from card, plus 4 from the die, -2 because Colombia is stability 1, so it's 4, -1 he had, it's 3 for me. He placed influence in Venezuela, blocking me there. I can go there, but this costs me double now, due to the rule I mentioned. And he pushed into Israel. And he played one small step. This is a neutral event, so he picked either event or influence points, and he couldn't even use the event because the prerequisites are not met. If you are behind on the space race track, press this card to move your marker 2 boxes forward on the space race track, gaining the VP value of the second box only. If I were here, he could have played this for the event to step over me, but that's not the case. By the way, if you have an if event, so the event has an if, and that prerequisite is not met, the event doesn't occur. So if it's a one-time event, it isn't triggered and it goes to the discard pile. But if you have a no if event, it occurs and it's removed if it's a one-time event, even if its effect is empty. For example, if I had played Truman Doctrine, which is already removed, and no European country will be uncontrolled containing my influence, Truman Doctrine would be triggered as an empty event because it has no if. It just moves remove all USSR influence marker in one uncontrolled country in Europe. This is actually the masterpiece of Twilight Struggle, to get rid of opponents' events, minimizing their impact. Okay, so let's threaten something, play something. I want to play all the cards, including 5-year plan with Africa scoring, so I don't want to play the China card because it leaves me with more cards, and I'm not sure which will be drawn by 5-year plan. This trick is only possible because 5-year plan is going to have only one possible card to be drawn, so I don't want to end up with more cards in hand. Cultural Revolution is my event, which allows me getting the China card back, and normally I would play China card and play this event, sorry, but in this case I want to play all the cards from my hand. Sadat expels Soviets is an event which grabs all my influence points from Egypt and gives him one, and yes, I will have to play it too. Now I place 2 in Panama because I have adjacency from Colombia, and I place 1 in Haiti. I have adjacency from Cuba. I now started dominating Central America, which I didn't because I didn't have a non-battleground. I now have a battleground, and a non-battleground, which is Haiti, and 2 battlegrounds, Cuba and Panama. So I am dominating, and this is now, well, let's count, 6. Why? I have domination for 3. I have 2 battlegrounds, Cuba and Panama, it's 5. I have Cuba, which is adjacent to US, which is 6. He, in turn, doesn't have anything. Not a single influence point, not to mention the prisons, although he can always go to Mexico or Cuba because I cannot deny him adjacency there. Oh, of course, I can play Cultural Revolution for the event, even if I have China card, because this gives me China card back if I don't have it. If I have it, I gain 1 victory point. I will not do it, because I don't want to gain 1 victory point and lose 3 operation cards, 3 operation points worth card. But this is an option. He could Haiti, he used a 1-op card and he rolled 4. So the result is 5. So he minus 2 because Haiti is of stability 1, and he rolled 5. Plus 1 from card is 6, minus doubled stability from Haiti is 4, so minus 1 for me, plus 3 from him. And now, if he wanted to realign Cuba, he has positive modifiers, because I have plus 1 for having more in Cuba, and he has plus 2 for adjacent Haiti or for adjacent USA. But I am going to prevent it. Now the modifiers are equal for Cuba, even. I broke Venezuela, and that's it. I can't use the third operation points because 2 were used here, not 1. But this move denied him presence in South America. My next move must be set that expels Soviets, and my last move 5-year plan as planned. He plays Liberation Theology and allows me to conduct event first, and this event is add 3 USSR influence in Central America, no more than 2 per country. No need to have adjacency, so I can put 2 in Mexico, and now I am controlling Central America because I am controlling all the battlegrounds there, which is Mexico, Cuba and Panama, and I have more countries than he has. I am able to place the third anywhere but in Mexico, so I will play it in Panama, because why not? And now he has 2 operation points. He's going to coup. He couped Colombia, and it was quite a good result. Exactly enough to get me rid of there. He rolled 3, plus 2 because Colombia, the card was worth 2 was 5, minus 2 because Colombia has a stability 1 is 3. I had 3, so that's it. I now play Sadat, remove all USSR influence and Egypt, and add 1 US influence, so resolve event first. Look at how sad it was. And I may place influence, let's say, in India to control it. His 6th action round. Each turn is started by USSR and then US responds. This is the rule, and this actually works in USSR favor at the beginning of the game and in US favor at the end of the game. Oh, he's realigning me. Mexico, modifiers are plus 1 and plus 1. I have plus 1 because I have more points there. He has plus 1 because he has adjacency. The roll failed. He has another one attempt left. But it must be realignment roll, and it must be Africa or either America, because realignments are DEFCON restricted. Cuba, this in turn succeeded for him. Modifiers were plus 2, but he rolled 1 more, so I lost 1. And my last 5-year plan, event first, DEFCON warning. This is warning actually not about DEFCON but about losing due to holding scoring card. But there's no risk like that, because I must randomly draw 1 card and China doesn't count to it, because China is special. And Africa is discarded without scoring, and I have like 3 operation points. So 1 goes here, 1 goes here to make it harder for him to realign, because now modifiers are plus 1 for me. And 1 may go here. Socialist governments, my event first. You remember I told you this is gonna be recurring event, and now it's back again. I remove 3 influence points of his from Europe, from Western Europe, but no more than 2 from one country. So I remove 2 from West Germany and 1 from UK. Please note that I need 5 more to control West Germany, and then I will be controlling Europe, which means that if Europe is scored and I still control it, I immediately win the game. Of course, he may place all 3 in West Germany, but he didn't. He put 1 in Venezuela and 1 in Cuba for 2. Southeast Asia scoring. This is a special scoring because it may not be held as usually, but it starts, so it only occurs once, and I will not headline it, but there's no domination or control in Southeast Asia. Players are scored country by country. Each country in Southeast Asia is worth 1 VP, except Thailand, which is worth 2 VPs. And this is a one-time scoring only. I will not headline it. Actually, I will headline Red Scare Purge. Just to show you this card. This is a big card. It's 4 operation points, but also a big event because all his cards will be reduced, except scoring cards and 1-point cards. If he is playing a 2-ops card, it is treated as 1-op card. 3-ops card is treated as a 2-ops card, and 4-ops card is treated as a 3-ops card. And this works for all purposes, so placing operation points, coupping, realigning, but also space race. He needs 2-ops card to space, so he will be able to space only cards with 3 or 4. And he headlined the Voice of America, very nasty event. He is able to remove 4 USSR influence from anywhere outside Europe, no more than 2 per country. So, for example, he may remove from Mexico and Guatemala, denying me access to this place. He did not. He denied me something else. He denied me control of Central America. I am now going to show you the difference between triggering the event first and playing operation points first. Alliance for Progress. This is his one-time event. US gains 1 VP for each US controlled battleground country in Central America and South America. Now the event is worth 1 victory point because he controls Venezuela. This is his only battleground country he's controlling. DEFCON is at 3, so I am able to coup Africa, America 1, America 2 and Middle East, and coupping a battleground lowers DEFCON. So I am going to coup first and target Venezuela, and if I roll anything higher than 1, he is no longer going to control Venezuela when Alliance for Progress is triggered. Please note that this is not an if event, so even if it scores 0 victory points, the event occurs and is removed. So Venezuela is target. I rolled 6, it's a very good coup. The event is triggered for 0 victory points. Still, it's removed from the deck because it was triggered. He couped with nuclear test ban and rolled 1, so the total result of a coup was... no, not 5, it was 4, because he is under Red Scare Purge and this card is worth 3 operations, not 4, as you can see. But it is annoying anyway, because it gives him a +2 modifier to realigning Cuba. I am not going to tolerate it, so I will probably counter coup. And I will use a 3-ops card as just like he did, so even if I roll 1, the worst I can get is to get back what there was. and I rolled one. So we got rid of 3 ops cards, but his 3 ops are actually 4 ops, so he probably has poorer hand than I have, so I guess he can't afford it, not me. Puppet governments, he uses it as an event. US may place 1 influence point in 3 countries with no influence points by either side. So he couldn't play it in, for example, Cuba because we are there. He couldn't play it in Iran because he is there, but these 3 were empty and he could play it. So what can I do now? I can play We Will Bury You for placing influence and regain control of Central America, and put 1 more in West Germany, threatening to control West Germany when I put the China card there. Of course, controlling Europe won't give me instant victory, because the controlled Europe must be scored in order to gain victory. He played arms race for operation points, and he put 1 in Brazil, 1 in Argentina. He didn't have more. Please note, he now set up a realignment against Venezuela, which is quite good. He has +1 modifier and can wipe me entirely out of the region. To avoid this, I am going to play Suez Crisis for coupping Colombia. I guess you already did the maths correctly. It was easy because I was going to get exactly the number I roll as a final result. He is realigning me, but from where? Cuba is at 0, and he succeeded because he rolled more, but it was only 1 attempt. Okay, Southeast Asia scoring. What is it? 2, 3, 4. This is me. 1, this is him. So I am going to gain 3 victory points just by playing Southeast Asia scoring. Influence from Arab-Israeli war. Please note that this event didn't trigger, although it's my event. It's not discarded because it's a returning card, and it will return to the deck even if it can no longer be played. This is a funny case. It's not starred, it's never removed, but it's also never going to be triggered because I had to play Camp David Accords, Camp David Accords, and Camp David Accords made Arab-Israeli war event no longer playable. So this is a 2-ops card which just goes from deck to deck, is never removed, and is never anything more or less than just a 2-ops card. Okay, so let's perform a threat. And control Europe, and create situation in which European scoring just loses him again. It won't happen now because you see this market scoring card has been played for this region, but the scoring cards will appear after another reshuffle. He played Kitchen Debates for the event. This is an if card. If the US controls more battleground countries than the USSR, poke opponent in chest and gain 2 VPs. He didn't poke me, but he indeed controls more battlegrounds than me, because Middle East and Africa give him advantage, which cannot be nullified by my Central America and Europe. It's probably not a big advantage, but it reminds me that I should do something about it, so I will play South African Unrest for the event. This is a recurring event which gives me either 2 influence in South Africa or 1 influence in South Africa and 2 in adjacent countries. And the most important thing it brings me is access here, because I have absolutely no influence here and can't get there by other means. So I'm playing the event, I'm adding adjacent, and I will add 1 here and 1 here. For a few years people were convinced that 2 into Botswana or 2 into Angola are allowed, but 1 to Angola and 1 to Botswana is not. However, Jason Matthews, the game designer, stated once in Board Game Geek forum that 2 different countries may be chosen by this event. And now his action rounds event, the last one, Quagmire. This is the lasting event, which cancels NORAD, and okay, what does the Quagmire say? Now, maybe here, let's look at it. This is a lasting event which doesn't end at the end of the turn. His next move must be playing a 2-ops card or higher and rolling a die. If he rolls 1, 2, 3 or 4, the Quagmire is ended. If he rolls 5 or 6, the Quagmire lasts, and his next move must be playing card, discarding card of 2-ops or more and rolling die, and so on and so on. The Quagmire is usually stopped on the first attempt, but may fail for example 4 or 5 attempts. I've seen that. If he gets rid of cards and has only scoring cards or 1-op cards, he has to pass. He has to play scoring cards and then he has to pass. And what is more, Red Scare Purge, if played for me again, if gained by me and played again, has an effect. So if I purge him now, he would have to discard 3 or 4 ops cards. He is allowed to discard any Defcon suicide cards or what, the events never trigger, but he is simply forced to pass. Now I know, after he had played it, that of course his headline will be triggered, but after that, and after my headline, I have at least 2 moves in a row. So let's headline the Cambridge 5 and check his scorings. He had headlined Junta. Junta is a very good event. Place 2 influence in any American country and then make a free coup or realignment rolls using this country operations value. In this case is 2. A free coup means that, oh, he realigned me out of Cuba. What does it mean that the coup is free? Oh, he has both scorings. American 1. The coup is free, which means it doesn't provide military operations. He still has 0, and he would have had 0 even if he had couped. I may now place 1 influence point in any of these countries, and I will pick Cuba because I don't have access here otherwise, and now I know I can play it there safely because his first move must be discarding. I will play Shuttle Diplomacy. Shuttle Diplomacy means that the next scoring of Asia and Middle East is counted so that it subtracts 1 from my battlegrounds, but I will have to score Middle East scoring, and I don't control any battlegrounds, so it doesn't change anything. I am going to control Lebanon, but it's non-battleground, just to gain presence. But first thing is that I want to place 3 here and regain control over the region he has to score. Probably because he may have card which allows him discarding cards from the hand. May or may not. He succeeded on his first attempt. So the Quagmire is no longer in effect, but NORAD is eliminated permanently. So now what? I can either coup, because DEFCON is still at 3, or allow him coups and just place influence. And I think I will coup. And I think I will use How I Learned to Stop Worrying, a neutral event for this. And why not? I will coup Brazil because he has a scoring of this region. I rolled 6, which was extremely fortunate, so the total result was 8. And now I am awaiting his play. He is coups somewhere. He could Guatemala. Please note that I no longer control Central America because I control all the battlegrounds, but I don't control more countries than he does. And I will try to change this fact by coups Nicaragua. I will choose one man in Tehran and resolve event first. This is an if event, and the prerequisite is met. He controls at least one Middle East country. So he now sees 5 cards. He doesn't show them to me. He may discard whatever he wishes from these 5, and I see what he discards. The other 2 are put in the deck. The deck is reshuffled again. He discards as Knot, which is very weird because it's his event. But I told you the computer isn't a strong player, and this is all he discarded, and I am going just to coup Nicaragua. And now I control Central America again. Had I couped it to 0, I would control still, because control doesn't require a battleground. I no longer control it, and I control it again. Of course, it's always risky to perform such things, but I know that he has to spend at least 2 actions playing scorings. OPEC is my event. I gain 1 VP, victory point. OPEC gains me 1 victory point for each country I control, from Venezuela, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Gulf states, Egypt and Libya. I now play his event. John Paul elected Pope. No decision of him. Remove 2 USSR influence in Poland and then add 1 US influence in Poland. Allows play of Solidarity. He broke my control in Poland that way. I am going to place influence in Italy and in Cuba. His 5th action round now. I have 2 more actions to play, and I must play the scoring. He has 3 more, and he must play 2 scorings. Muslim Revolution is my event, and it allows me removing all US influence in 2 of the following countries: Sudan, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan. Egypt and Libya are the most lucrative. He equalized South America and Central America, and excuse me, and now he has to play these two scorings. And I have the following options. I may play Middle East scoring for 3 for him, or I can put one in Lebanon and play then middle scoring for 0, or I can play Allende for the event and then play Middle East scoring, and Allende gives me 2 influence in Chile, so this costs me presence in Middle East, but this gives me South American domination, which is worth the same because South America is scored 2 for presence and 5 for domination, and Middle East is scored 3 for presence. Or I may go all in and use the card to coup Dominican Republic or El Salvador, and if the coup succeeds, I mean if I roll anything higher than 1, I control Central America. Central America now scores 5 because we are both present, nobody dominates it, but I have 3 battlegrounds which counts for 3 and 2 adjacencies which counts for 2. But this one coup has a 1/6 chance to change nothing and 5/6 chance to give me 4 extra victory points because my presence changes into my control. So the options are 4 VPs with 1/6 chance of failing, or 3 VPs for sure, or other 3 VPs for sure. And I play the most risky thing. And succeeded. I know it was tactical and strategical rather than rules tidbit, but I think it's worth showing it. It scored quite nice, 9 victory points. Middle East scoring, on the other hand, scored 3 for him. South America scored 0, and it's interesting that the scoring of Middle East denied shuttle diplomacy, although, I can't show it because there was a reshuffle. Although the shuttle diplomacy had no effect whatsoever because I had no battleground. And what do we have here? I may headline, for example, Lone Gunman, and this is a good card. US player reveals his hand, then USSR may conduct operations. This is the CIA reversed. If he had it, it would be a DEFCON suicide. I have it, so I may just look in his hand and then use 1 operation point. It's only 1, but using operation points in headline is always worth. He had headlined Indo-Pakistani War. He goes first. Indo-Pakistani War against India. My modifiers were 0. He needed 4, 5 or 6, but he rolled 3. And I see his hand. I am going to try to remember this hand. I will be able to check it in this engine, but the rules don't allow it in tournament. For example, if you... Well, the rules of engine tournament don't forbid it, but if you play over the board, the opponent shows you the card now, but then he hides them, you perform your action, and, well, you are not allowed to watch these cards later. So I will not watch them cards later. Interestingly, when the engine allows it, and after playing such card anything happens to the network connection and the game has to be replayed, it's a good habit to inform the opponent of what he can't see anymore. I don't know whether this engine has such problems or not. The Wargame.com engine had such problems. Okay. and I now can conduct operations, then it's gonna be my turn again. And these operations may be an influence in Poland, regaining control of Europe, because he broke this control, and actually I didn't control Europe for a while. Then, now what? DEFCON is a 3, so coups are opened. Ussuri River Skirmish, this is the Cultural Revolution reversed, but with stronger effect, because if I have China card, USA gets it immediately. If I don't have it, USA gets 4 influence in Asia, no more than 2 per country. So if I play it now, he is going to grab China card from me. Let's see how it looks. Yes. And I may now perform a coup. So let's perform a example coup. Let's pick a 2-step country, Iran. It's a 2-step, so 3 plus die minus 4, it's die minus 1. He has 1, so I essentially get die minus 2 influence. If I roll 2, I get nothing. If I roll 1, I only wipe him out. Sorry, if I roll 1, the coup fails. If I got 2, it's 0-0. I rolled 2. My event, Flower Power. Flower Power is the event which gives me 2 victory points every time he plays a war card. And the war card is Arab-Israeli War, Korean War, Brush War, Indo-Pakistani War, Iran-Iraq War. It's interesting that if he spaces the card, I don't get victory points, but if he plays the card regardless any other way, I get the VPs, even if he plays it without the event, just for operation points. However, Arab-Israeli War now cannot be played as an event and doesn't count to the Flower Power, so he can play Arab-Israeli War freely. Socialist governments again, and I will again use the event. Please note that now he may place 1 operation point in Italy for 2. Sorry, 1 influence point in Italy for 2 operation points, but the next one will still cost him another 2 operation points, because I will control Italy after his first operation point. This is why over-controlling matters. He may bring it back to 3-4 by using 4 operation points card. And as far as I remember, he doesn't have any. He can always break France, yes. Okay. I made a rather silent move, but attempting to over-control all battlegrounds in Europe, which makes it much harder to break. Yes, summit coup. I hope you remember how coups work. Now Cuba is vulnerable for realignments again, and I no longer control Central America. And all the scorings came back to the deck because there was a reshuffle. As you see, there is nowhere the round indicator that the scoring had been played. There are only the DEFCON restrictions indicators, sorry. So let's play UN Intervention, our favorite card, with OAS funded. His event won't occur. His event allows him gaining 2 influence in Americas, and he could gain access, or no, not access, because he has access now. He could break me, for example 2 in Brazil, or 1 in Cuba, 1 in Mexico, but now he doesn't, and I am able to attempt a coup for 1 op. Playing UN Intervention means I will have to play my hand until the end. Two influence points from the neutral event. Okay, I am going to play Brush War as the event, just to show you how it works. It works much like Indo-Pakistani war, the difference being it may target any country with stability 2 or 1 in the world. NATO only disallows me targeting US controlled countries in Europe, but it doesn't apply. US controls only Canada, and it's too high stability. It requires only 3 or more as a modified roll to succeed. Roll counts the same. But it gains 3 military operations and only 1 victory points if succeeds. Yeah, read it. This is actually one of the 3 strongest cards in the mid-war deck. Okay, I'm going to play the event, and I'm going to target, if I target Argentina, excuse me, I win on 4, 5 or 6, 50% chance. The same for Algeria. If I target Zaire or Nigeria, excuse me, I win on 3, 4, 5 or 6, 66% chance. I may target Mexico, I may target all 3 of them. I think I am going to target Syria just to make it more funny. I failed. With 2, Brush War is never successful. With 1, it's also never successful. I only gained 1 missing millop. Millops may never be lost, so they never count above 5, because they only count to comparison for with DEFCON, which is never higher than 5. Brezhnev Doctrine means all of my cards are worth 1 influence point more till the end of the turn. So this is a 4 and this is a 4. However, this is going to be to go to space. This is the equivalent of Quagmire, except that it doesn't cancel NORAD, because there's no equivalent for NORAD. Everything all is the same. I'll give you several seconds to read it. Everything I said about Quagmire applies. So, Space Race. Success. Now Space Race is funny, because if he doesn't space or spaces and fails, I have the privilege of seeing his headline. Look. He has to choose and show headline card before I choose mine. I am now going to play Containment, which is the equivalent of Brezhnev Doctrine for him, so all of his cards will be +1 till the end of the turn, so for 1 move, and this is worth 4 for me. And I may make things like this and this. Only 2, because I was breaking twice. This influence point cost me 2 operation point, this cost me 2 operation points as well. and he had 3 because of containment. And now, please note, I am not picking anything until I see his headline. He's waiting for opponent to decide, because this is a space privilege. The downside is that I may no longer space 2 ops cards, because now 3 ops cards are required for spacing. Colonial Rearguards. What does it card say? Add 1 influence, US influence, in each of 4 different African and or Southeast Asian countries. Nasty. But at least I can see it. And Allende, we saw this nice guy. It's gonna break Chile. Now, tear down this wall is normally a Defcon suicide card. If I had played it now, it's not a Defcon suicide card because the Defcon is at 3, but it's worth looking at. Cancels, prevents, will ban, it's not important. Add 3 US influence in East Germany, so that would be 4-6, and then US make a free coup attempt or realignment rolls in Europe using this card's ops value. Free coup means he doesn't get military operations, but he makes coup with 3 ops card, and what's more important, the card explicitly says that this must be done in Europe, so he must, and he is allowed to do it in Europe regardless of the Defcon level. The Defcon may be at 3 and he may still coup Italy. Actually, this is one of his last chances to avoid my controlling Europe, because we are on turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, and what's then? 10 turns are played and nobody reaches 20 victory points. Then there comes one of the other ways of winning Twilight Struggle game. The final scoring. If nobody reaches 20 victory points of advantage by the end of turn 10, after counting military operations, the final scoring is applied, which means all regions are scored simultaneously except Southeast Asia, plus 1 VP is gained to the player who actually hold the China card, no matter whether he has it open to play or not, and then whoever has more VPs is the winner. The draw is possible. There's also a late war card named War Games, which says that a player may immediately end the game, provided the Defcon is at 2, after giving the opponent 6 victory points. So if I had the card War Games, I would have to drop Defcon to 2, and if he hadn't earned victory point in his reply, I could play War Games, give him 6 victory points, and then win by 1 victory point. And it's a 1 game by me. If he had earned 1 victory point, I could still do it, but only for draw. I guess that's it about all the ways of winning and losing a game of Twilight Struggle. It's victory points track, auto victory due to Europe control, because if Europe is controlled in the final scoring, it's an auto victory as well, no matter what the score actually is. The bigger scoring, final scoring, War Games, Defcon, holding scoring card. In tournament you can also exceed the time limit or violate sportsmanship. Getting back to the hand, yes, OPEC gives me only 1 victory point now, so I will not play it for the event, I think 3 operation points will be used by me, and I will try to coup Iran. It's natural to coup Iran, and it's natural to attempt in regions that are to be scored. I have Middle East scoring, so I am attempting there. Coup in Colombia. We all know how coups work. Counter coup with Colombia, in Colombia, with a neutral card. Independent threats are gonna be funny. Add sufficient US influence in either Yugoslavia, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary or Czechoslovakia to equal USSR influence. So if I play it, he will put 3 here to make it 3-3 or 3 here to make it 4-4. He may also put 1 here, but I doubt it's his choice. So I'll go here and just wait for his choice. It's gonna look quite funny, I guess. It doesn't deny me European control anyway. And of course it's his turn now. It's my event, but he already played it. Why is it? Because this event tells him that he must discard a 3 or greater operations card, or I am allowed to double my influence in 2 countries in South America. But he decided to discard, so let's focus on the card he discarded. It's Che Guevara, actually a very nice event. It allows me perform a coup, which is not free, it gains MILAPs, in any non-battleground in South America, Central America or Africa, and if the coup succeeds, and against a one-stop country it must succeed, I may perform another one against different target under the same circumstances. It comes very close to two consecutive actions, which is always very valuable in this game. So, focusing on the region which is to be scored part next. I guess I am going to place the scoring on my and well, lose some points regardlessly. I'm just showing you how it works. Another important thing, Chernobyl. US player may designate one region. For the remainder of the turn, the USSR may not additional influence to that region by the play of operation points via placing influence. So, if I play this card, for example, triggering the event first, he may say, hey, you cannot place even in Middle East, and then break me here, and I will have to suffer no prisoners. But I may play the event and first put influence in Mexico, Saudi Arabia and let's say Lebanon, and then it doesn't hurt me that much anymore. I'm not going to do this, I just showed you it, because I'm going to play this as my last action round. I play my 5th action round now, so it's 3 more. So it's a forced scoring, it's a card which should go last, and it's a card which should go to space. Scoring cannot be scoring lessens the flexibility of the hand, so if you feel it can be much better, it's worth playing. Now space race. Succeeded, which gives me 3 victory points because I am the first on lunar orbit. It was unfortunate for him because he was rolling with +2 modifier. He may perform another realignment and he may decide where. It was fortunate for him, although he only drew the roll. So now Chernobyl is for coup attempt, and he may choose whatever he wishes. Actually, he played he had Europe scoring. He played Europe scoring, and since I control Europe, this is an instant win. And he couldn't afford it. Sorry, he couldn't deny it, because otherwise I would win by him holding a scoring card. So this is the end of the game. The game ended with my victory due to controlling Europe. I hope you learned something about the rules, about how the game is played, about how it goes. I'm sure not everything was shown in this movie, and I'm sorry, but it's not possible to show everything. I cannot decide about how the cards are going and so on and so on. I just hope you know much more about this game than you knew before. Please subscribe Ziemowit's channel, please subscribe Janusz channel, they are both in the recommended channels of my channel. Please subscribe mine as well, and see you next time.